Andy Summers, the legendary guitarist of the Police, seated in a quiet room, his tone reflective but tinged with frustration. Today, he's peeling back the layers of a partnership that defined a generation of music and revealing the cracks that often made it unbearable. Summers is opening up about his time with Sting, the frontman whose charisma and talent catapulted the band to global stardom, but whose difficult personality left a trail of tension and unresolved conflicts. While their music conquered the world, the atmosphere behind the scenes was far from harmonious. Sting, with his magnetic stage presence and genius for songwriting, was the undeniable star of the Police. But as Summers recalls, that brilliance often came with a sharp edge, one that cut deep into their collaboration. From creative clashes to ego-driven decisions, the story of their relationship is as turbulent as it is iconic. And Sting's conflicts didn't end with Summers. Throughout his career, the singer's unyielding drive and controlling tendencies created rifts with collaborators and bandmates alike. London, 1977. The Police were on the verge of becoming one of the biggest bands in the world. Andy Summers, the seasoned guitarist, joined the lineup, bringing a level of sophistication and experience that transformed their sound. Sting, the band's enigmatic bassist and lead singer, was already establishing himself as the creative force behind their music. But as the band's star began to rise, so did the tensions between its members. Summers recalls how Sting's need for control became a constant source of friction. The Police were meant to be a trio, a democratic unit, but as Sting's songwriting took center stage, the dynamics shifted. Creative decisions became battles, with Summers and drummer Stuart Copeland often feeling sidelined. Sting, Summers suggests, seemed to believe his vision was the only one that mattered. What should have been a collaboration increasingly felt like a dictatorship. The recording sessions for Synchronicity in 1983 were particularly fraught. While the album would go on to be a masterpiece, with hits like Every Breath You Take dominating the charts, the process of creating it was anything but harmonious. Summers describes an atmosphere of constant tension, with Sting refusing to budge on his ideas and dismissing input from his bandmates. The trio, once united by their love of music, had become a group of individuals barely able to coexist. It wasn't just Summers who struggled with Sting's difficult personality. Stuart Copeland, the band's fiery drummer, was also frequently at odds with him. Their clashes were legendary, with arguments sometimes spilling onto the stage during live performances. Copeland, known for his high-energy drumming and strong opinions, often found himself in direct conflict with Sting, whose meticulous approach to songwriting left little room for improvisation. One infamous incident occurred during a rehearsal for their 1984 tour, when an argument over a song's tempo escalated into a physical altercation. While the band managed to put on a united front for their fans, the underlying tension was impossible to ignore. Summers notes that these moments weren't rare, they were emblematic of a band held together by their success, but fractured by their personalities. When the Police disbanded in 1986, Sting embarked on a solo career that cemented his status as a global superstar. But Summers reflects that the split wasn't as clean as it seemed. For Sting, going solo was an opportunity to fully realize his artistic vision without compromise. For Summers and Copeland, it felt like a betrayal, a final confirmation that Sting had always seen himself as separate from the band. Sting's solo career brought commercial success, but also highlighted the challenges of working with him. Collaborators, including musicians and producers, often described him as demanding and perfectionistic. While his drive resulted in critically acclaimed albums like The Soul Cages and 10 Summoner's Tales, it also alienated many of those who worked with him. Sting's insistence on total control left little room for collaboration, creating an atmosphere of isolation even amid his achievements. Sting's challenging personality extended far beyond his years with the Police, leaving a trail of friction in his solo career and personal life. His brilliance as a songwriter and performer was often accompanied by a perfectionism that strained his relationships, even with those who shared his creative vision. Sting was not just demanding, he was relentless, a trait that earned him both admiration and exhaustion from those around him. Think of this Sting in a pristine recording studio, headphones clamped over his ears, dissecting a single chord with the intensity of a surgeon. Across from him sits Hugh Padgham, a producer renowned for his meticulous work with Genesis and Phil Collins, visibly weary of Sting's unyielding demands. Their collaboration, while producing critically acclaimed albums such as The Dream of the Blue Turtles and Nothing Like the Sun, was anything but smooth. Padgham reportedly found Sting's perfectionism to be both a blessing and a curse. While Sting's insistence on detail elevated the quality of the music, it also created an atmosphere of constant friction. Every note, every lyric, and every arrangement became a point of contention. Sting's refusal to compromise wasn't just about achieving the best sound, it was about control. He wanted the final word on everything, often dismissing Padgham's suggestions with an air of superiority. For Padgham, who had worked with some of the biggest names in music, Sting's attitude was particularly grating. The tension was palpable, turning what should have been a creative partnership into a test of endurance. Sting's difficult nature wasn't confined to the studio. His personal relationships also bore the brunt of his intense personality and rising fame. His first marriage to actress Frances Tomelty began as a love story full of promise, but it quickly unraveled under the weight of infidelity rumors and the pressures of his stardom. As Sting's career skyrocketed, so did the distance between him and Tomelty, both emotionally and physically. The marriage became a battleground of unmet expectations and whispered betrayals, with Sting's growing public persona overshadowing their private life. The final blow came when Sting's affair with Trudy, a close friend of the couple, became public knowledge. The revelation was a scandal that rocked their social circle and left Tomelty humiliated. For Sting, the fallout was a painful reminder that his personal ambitions often came at a steep cost. Yet, even as his marriage dissolved, Sting remained unapologetic, forging ahead with Styler by his side, a decision that would define his personal life for decades to come. Sting's relationship with Styler, while eventually stabilizing, was not without its own share of drama. Their early years together were overshadowed by the controversy surrounding the affair. Friends and family took sides, and the media painted them as a scandalous couple. While Sting and Styler presented a united front, the whispers of betrayal lingered, casting a shadow over their beginnings. Styler, known for her strong personality, often clashed with Sting over his workaholic tendencies and need for control. Their dynamic, though passionate, was fraught with tension, as Sting's unrelenting focus on his career left little room for compromise. Yet Styler matched him in resilience, pushing back against his domineering nature and carving out her own identity within the relationship. Their marriage eventually became one of longevity and mutual respect, but it was forged in the fires of public scrutiny and personal conflict. Sting's brilliance and ambition were the driving forces behind his success, but they also left a trail of broken relationships and simmering resentment. His insistence on doing things his way alienated collaborators like Hugh Padgham, while his personal life was marked by betrayals and upheaval. Sting's pursuit of perfection came at a cost not just to those who worked with him but also to his own peace of mind. For Sting, conflict seemed to be both a byproduct of his genius and a reflection of his inability to relinquish control. While his music continues to inspire, the stories of those left in his wake serve as a reminder that even the most gifted individuals are often their own worst enemies. The perfection that Sting sought in his work was rarely mirrored in his relationships, leaving behind a legacy as complex and layered as the man himself. For Andy Summers, working with Sting was a paradox. On one hand, he was in awe of Sting's talent, a voice that could move mountains, and a songwriting ability that captured the complexities of the human experience. On the other hand, he often felt overshadowed, reduced to a supporting role in a band that was supposed to be an equal partnership. The Police may have been a vehicle for Sting's genius, but it came at the cost of harmony within the group. Summers acknowledges that their shared success was monumental, but the scars left by their conflicts remain. Sting's brilliance is undeniable, but as Summers' revelations show, it often came with a heavy price. For those who worked alongside him, Sting was both a beacon of creativity and a source of frustration, a figure whose genius could light up a room, but whose personality often left it cold. Sting's legacy stands unshaken as one of the most influential figures in modern music. His voice, with its haunting clarity, and his songs, from the raw urgency of Roxanne to the wistful beauty of Fields of Gold, have transcended decades. These are works that resonate across generations, solidifying his place among music's greats. But as Andy Summers reveals, that legacy comes with a shadow. Behind the glowing accolades and record-breaking tours lies a man whose relentless drive and perfectionism often alienated those closest to him. To work with Sting was to walk a fine line between awe and exasperation. Summers describes the experience as both inspiring and exhausting, a duality that defined their time in the Police. Sting's brilliance was undeniable. his ability to craft melodies and lyrics that struck a universal chord unmatched by most of his peers. But that same brilliance came with an unyielding need for control. He didn't just demand excellence, he demanded submission to his vision, a quality that often stifled collaboration and bred resentment. While audiences saw a band that seemed in perfect harmony, Summers and others behind the scenes felt the strain of Sting's domineering nature. Every chord progression, every arrangement, and every lyric became a battleground for his creative will. Summers recalls moments of sheer frustration when Sting's refusal to compromise turned what could have been a partnership into a hierarchy. Sting's public persona as a thoughtful, introspective artist often stood in stark contrast to the turmoil behind the scenes. To the world, he was the charismatic frontman whose music carried profound emotional weight. But for those who worked with him, he was a figure of contradictions, at once deeply introspective and intensely demanding. Summers describes the dichotomy of watching Sting mesmerize millions on stage, only to later witness him shut down collaboration with a cold finality. It wasn't just Summers who bore the weight of this dynamic. Others in Sting's orbit, from producers to session musicians, have recounted similar experiences. The same traits that made him a superstar, his focus, his intensity, his unwavering belief in his vision, often left little room for the contributions of others. While this approach brought unparalleled success, it also left behind a legacy of fractured relationships. For Andy Summers, Sting's legacy is as complex as the man himself. Working with him was a privilege, but it came at a cost. The highs of creating music that shaped a generation were tempered by the lows of navigating Sting's often overwhelming personality. Summers describes their journey as one of contrasts, moments of sheer artistic triumph paired with periods of interpersonal discord that threatened to derail everything they had built. Sting's story, then, is one of duality. He is a man whose artistry reshaped music, whose voice and vision continue to inspire. But he is also a man whose need for control often left those closest to him struggling to keep up. For Summers and others, Sting was both a beacon of creativity and a source of constant tension, a figure whose legacy will forever be marked by both talent and turmoil.